mustn't forget this is a transitional government, and as much as the U.S. Has allowed Delcy Rodríguez, the former vice president, to assume power in an effort to ensure stability, prioritizing stability over a rushed return to democracy. It's still a transitional government. And to me, I think that that poses a yellow light in the sense that as much as she may be familiar with the oil industry, or as much as oil companies are willing or capable of working in difficult circumstances, the fact that it's a transitional government, I think, to me, makes it hard for it to be able to project the political and regulatory stability that underpins significant and broad-based investment and a pickup both in the oil industry as well as in the broader economy.
Jimena, President Trump has indicated that while U.S. May or may not, quote unquote, run Venezuela, it will have a big influence on government policies. Is there any reason to believe that will in fact happen?
I think so. I mean, I think the U.S. has colossal military leverage that is more credible than ever after the weekend events. And on top of that, there's a lot of economic leverage from the U.S. enforced oil quarantine now on Venezuela. Delcy Rodríguez knows that if she does not comply with the U.S. request, she risks suffering the same fate as Maduro's did. That said, it's unclear she will be able to deliver on the U.S. request. In particular, the U.S. has made requests concerning dismantling of drug trafficking networks, opening up the oil industry, and also eliminating or removing from the country foreign elements such as those linked to Hezbollah or the Colombian FARC and ELN. She may try, but there are other power centers in Venezuela along with her, who are the Defense Minister Padrino Lopez and the Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello. And now she's in a tightrope, right? Because she's between the U.S. pressure and also the distrust that these other power centers may have, given that she's negotiating with the U.S. and maybe trying to save her own skin, but that those other two power centers might be future U.S. targets, and they know that. So it's unclear how long she can last and how long-lastingly she can establish control over the Venezuelan transition.
So given all of that, given these competing interests that she needs to balance, what is her number one priority and what is the U.S.'s number one priority for Venezuela?
I think for the U.S., the key priority it showed with the strategy it undertook by allowing Rodríguez to take over, as opposed to the Democratic opposition, who, by all credible accounts, won the 2024 elections and wanted and still wants to assume power. I think what the U.S. was prioritizing was avoiding a highly adverse scenario in which the opposition takes over, but without full civilian control over the military and the police, and therefore there is factional infighting, and that opposition, that democratic transition doesn't last long, and it's actually a failure. I think what the U.S. is trying to do is prioritizing stability because the regime still controls all those power levers associated with the use of force. But I think the long-term direction is to move towards stability, toward democratic transition, because that's the only lasting way which the U.S. can seek to underpin a prosperous Venezuela in the hemisphere, and also a more lasting and solid foundation also for an oil renaissance.